Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. We now know more about the Jonas versus Habazin undercard set to go down before this year is out, December 14th in Natasha's Liverpool. Her fellow boxer stablemate and fellow welterweight champion, Lauren Price, will be boxing on that same show against an unbeaten up-and-comer like herself in Bexcy Mateus of Bogota, Colombia. A dangerous place, and Bexcy Mateus is a fighter with a pretty face and an unblemished record of 7 wins with no losses, no draws, 6 knockouts. 29 years old, the Lauren Price, who's 30, also 7-0. Though with only 1 recorded knockout, Lauren's not a puncher. She's a mover, a speedster. She excels in a lot of areas, but power, she's not big on power. Lauren is another one who not that long ago was complaining that she's waiting for a fight date. She's in the gym, she's getting ready, she's eager to get back out there. We'll recall that Joe Gallagher, Natasha Jonas's longtime trainer, was complaining that it was taking far too long to get Natasha a fight. It seems that Lauren Price was of a similar mindset. She wasn't as disgruntled, but you get the gist of it. So now they're getting her back out there against unbeaten Bexcy Mateus, who saw action 2 times already. She saw action earlier this year in July, then again in September. She fought 4 times last year, and she's already fought 2 times this one. This fight with Lauren will be her 3rd fight of this year, scheduled for 10 rounds. What is Bexcy Mateus's first 10-rounder? She's never fought for more than 8 rounds. Lauren, not as productive this calendar year. She only saw action once. Just once earlier this year in May against then-champion Jessica McCaskill. Same number of fights between Lauren and Bexcy, though perhaps not the same level of experience, not the same quality of competition or ceiling. Bexcy's not half bad. Mid-range to inside slugger. It's still rough around the edges like what you would expect. There is some more work needs doing, but there is something there that if she weren't just being auctioned off as an opponent for more big-name fighters that have more money behind them, if she actually had some money behind her to help her develop and sharpen what she's already good at, she might do all right. Kinda reminds me of Uruguay's Mayra Moneo. Another rough and tough fighter, rough and tumble, rough around the edges, but a good physical specimen, durable. Can take a punch, can give a punch. Most of Bexcy Mateus's KOs are over pedestrian level competition, pedestrian level opponents, but that still means that on some level, she's got power, she's got pop, that you don't want to keep letting her hit you clean. It's gonna be hard to do against Lauren. Landing a clean punch, as stated, Lauren herself is not big on power, but she's big on mobility, agility, speed. She's got buckets and buckets of hand speed and foot speed. That's what jumps out at you about Lauren. And Bexcy will find it quite difficult to land a clean punch on her. That even the most aggressive of aggressive opponents can simmer down when they're faced with more speed and angles than they can handle. That's how I think this fight is gonna look. The kind of hand speed that Lauren Price brings to the table is disarming. You don't see the punches coming in. Even if by some chance you do, they're coming in so hot and so fast in such a rapid succession, you can't do much about it. But shell up. Tuck yourself behind that guard and try to stop as many of those punches from getting in as you can, which is difficult. That's why I said it's disarming. So where Bexcy, throughout 7 fights, might have grown accustomed to being the aggressor, being the one coming forward, well, that's gonna be hard to do against Lauren. Olympic gold medalist and newly crowned WBA Ring Magazine champion in what will be her first defense of the title.
Lauren on points is the pick.
And I don't really know what's going to happen after that. It would seem like common sense that Boxer should make a fight between Lauren Price and Natasha Jonas. That if Natasha beats Ivana Habazin in the main event, becomes both WBC and IBF champion, the logical fight to make is the Price fight.
But is Natasha gonna go for that?
Lauren Price beats Natasha Jonas, and I love Natasha Jonas. I've loved her for years, but Natasha don't win that fight. Not at this age.
And not with Lauren's speed, her natural size as well.
Lauren is a real welterweight, you understand? She's a real welterweight. She's not a smaller fighter who's been moving up and down in weight like Natasha.
Why does she always look mad?
Yeah, probably because Ben's taken too goddamn long to get her a fight. I'd be mad too. I just wonder, if Natasha Jonas wins in December, does she stay in the sport a while longer, or does she cap off her career on that unification match? Does she call it a career? Because this was intended to be her last year in the sport of boxing.
It still might be.
Or does she pursue a rematch with Michaela Mayer? Michaela don't want to fight in the UK.
That's what she said.
Would Natasha fight her in the US? Would Top Rank formulate a good enough offer to make that happen? Or would Natasha stay across the pond, unify with Lauren? She don't beat Lauren. Though for Boxer, it's the logical fight to make.
Questions that are gonna need answers after December.
Men's welterweight news per the WBA. Teams for Eimantas Stanionis and Shakram Giyasov have reached a deal for their ordered welterweight title fight. Purse bid previously scheduled for today is now cancelled. Sorry for the purse bid heads.
What are purse bid heads?
I don't know. If Eimantas Stanionis manages to make it through this fight with standout amateur of Uzbekistan, Shakram Giyasov, he really needs to make it his business to go unify with Jaron Ennis. More than the others. More than with, say, Mario Barrios, because fighting Mario, if the PBC even tried to make that fight, wouldn't pay out but so much. It's the same with Brian Norman. Not that Brian or Top Rank tried to make that fight. They didn't. Maybe they will next year, but if they do, it's only going to pay you but so much, whereas fighting Boots, you stand to make more, especially if it's at a Riyadh season show.
News broke earlier this year that Eddie Hearn was trying to make a unification match between Boots and the other three champions at the weight, Eimantas Stanionis among them. Eimantas Stanionis made an appearance on a Boxing Voice, and he said that for fighting Boots in his hometown, Eddie's got to put out more money.
Pay out more money. And this is an undercard fighter talking like this. Guy who can't sell out a family dinner.
Give me a break.
He squandered most of this year, having only fought once. Just once. That's the amount of times the PBC were able to get him out. Just once. And he thinks he's in any position to make demands? He beats Shakram Giyasov if he's lucky enough to beat Shakram Giyasov if he stays WBA champion.
You better make that Boots fight happen.
Don't fight it, just let it happen. Fight what?
Playing games you can't afford to play with marquee value and bargaining power you don't have. You have a belt.
You and three other guys.
Bear in mind that Jaron Ennis' name is attached to a potential move up to 154 for a fight with Vergil Ortiz. And if he does that, and he leaves this division, there goes all the money.
Because you don't generate any.
Neither does Mario Barrios or Brian Norman.
Don't waste any more time.
Let it happen.
Let what happen?
A unification match, as that is your only value in today's boxing sphere, this boxing landscape. Unless you're talking about unifying titles with the other champions at the weight, you by yourself ain't gonna generate nothing. If you're lucky enough that you beat Shakram Giyasov, you better make it your mission to unify titles with Jaron Ennis. And we still don't know what the circumstances are of the Shakram Giyasov fight. I'm going to assume they're going to book this for the undercard of either David Benavidez versus David Morrell or Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach. One of those fights set to go down in either February or March.
Perhaps this fight will go down on the undercard of one of those fights.
That being said, I don't imagine it's going to pay the fighters very much if it does end up happening on the PBC side of things.
There is movement in the welterweight division.
Early next month, there's supposed to be a WBC final eliminator between unbeaten up-and-comer Suleiman Cissoko and seasoned world title challenger Igidijus Kavaliauskas. The winner of the fight goes on to become Mario Barrios' mandatory challenger and a high-risk low-reward opponent.
For Mario.
I don't got nothing against Mario Barrios, I just know what his limitations are. And those limitations were put on full display on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson when he shared the ring with Abel Ramos, who was lumping him up, busting him up.
He's very lucky to still be WBC champion.
He's another one who needs to make it his mission to unify titles with Jaron Ennis as soon as possible, because if he doesn't, and an order comes down for him to fight the winner of this fight, it doesn't matter who the winner is. They both beat him, whether Kavaliauskas wins or Cissoko wins.
They both beat him.
You get put in a hot seat at any point next year to satisfy the winner of this fight as your mandatory challenger. You lose, my friend. You lose, and you lose for peanuts on a dollar.
You lose the boots, too.
You'd lose to him, but you need to let it happen.
Let what happen?
A fighter of such limited ability as a Mario Barrios cannot afford to be naive, cannot afford to be a cockeyed optimist. You just had a kid.
Boxing, in a very general sense, gives you a limited window of opportunity to make money, whether you're talented, supremely talented, or not.
You can't listen to these content creators. You can't listen to these people that are out there that are making you drive a hard bargain. You drive too hard a bargain, you end up losing to the winner of this fight for pennies on a dollar, for nothing.
And this surge of weirdos who don't want to see Boots get a unification match with any of the other champions at the weight.
What's their problem?
They want Boots to go to 154, as if he's going to have any more luck getting big fights up there than he's having now.
They're angry that for a long time Boots was using the name of Terence Crawford to have articles written about him with no real intention to fight him. And I understand that anger.
Though it has no place here, no use, the welterweight division needs action. The welterweight division needs unification matches. Moreover, Mario Barrios needs to act fast.
You don't have the luxury of time. This fight between Suleiman and Igas is going down before this year is out, priming the winner to become your problem next year.
If you're lucky, you can book yourself a slot against Boots in February on a Riyadh season show, the undercard of Daniel Dubois' next fight. If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. But if you don't act fast, you sit on your hands, you let the gravy train go by, you're gonna have to deal with this. Do you want to do that?
Don't be stupid.
Listen to these idiots online who have an axe to grind. They don't want Boots to get a unification.
Shut up.
Shut the hell up. As it pertains to that potential move upstairs to 154, I mentioned earlier, the name of Jaron Ennis was tied to a Vergil Ortiz fight. Oscar De La Hoya declared over the weekend that Vergil Ortiz's next fight will take place February 22nd on the undercard of Daniel Dubois' next fight in Riyadh against either Jaron Ennis, Sebastian Fundora, or Terence Crawford.
Ortiz versus Crawford has been a hot-button topic for at least 2.5 years now, when Paco Vergil quite famously stated that Vergil was offered that fight 2 times, and he turned it down 2 times. Now, Vergil denied all of that,
but I don't think Paco Vergil, the former WBO president, is in the business of making up stories. He gains nothing out of making Vergil Ortiz look bad. So maybe Vergil didn't turn down the fight himself, but the fight was rejected. It was turned down on his behalf. By Oscar De La Hoya, by Rick Merrigan, or both. I don't think Paco was lying.
We all know Oscar likes to protect his fighters.
So will it be Terence Crawford that Vergil Ortiz ends up fighting in February? I'm not confident, I'm not. Because Oscar likes to protect his fighters, and because Terence Crawford seems focused on Canelo, this it's Canelo or nobody kind of time he's on, I'm not confident that we get Crawford versus Ortiz.
What about Ennis versus Ortiz?
I don't know if we get that one either, because of what's going on at 147, because of what we just talked about. Eddie Hearn pays attention. He's got to know these welterweight champions are running out of time. Very soon,
they're gonna have to play ball.
Mario Barrios, especially, on that premise, Boots and Bexcy might decide they want to stay at 147. They want to continue to try and unify that division. So I'm not sure that we get Ortiz versus Ennis in February. I'm not sure. Ortiz versus Fundoria.
That's a fight that doesn't get talked about enough. In Vergil Ortiz's last fight with Sergey Bohachuk, he became the WBC's interim champion and the mandatory challenger to Sebastian's green belt. but that fight doesn't really get talked about.
Oscar mentioned it. He mentioned it over the weekend during Riyadh Season Latino Night, and that's the first time I've heard him mention it. That's the most I've seen him talk about it. That fight is a distinct possibility, and from where I'm sitting, that is a more winnable fight than the aforementioned two. Fighting Sebastian makes for a more winnable fight than fighting Terrence or fighting Boots. Don't forget, Sebastian Fundora's been beat before. He got knocked out by Brian Mendoza, and God bless him, Brian Mendoza.
He's no world beater.
Sebastian Fundora's got not one, but two alphabet titles, the green belt and the brown one.
Vergil's the mandatory for the green belt. Terrence is the mandatory for the brown one. But Terrence ain't pushing for this fight.
Now there is talk of a Sebastian Fundora versus Errol Spence Jr. fight at some point next year. There's talk of that, but how far into next year are we talking? We know that the PBC are doing one show, at least one show, in February and March. So what, Sebastian doesn't get out there until the spring?
Does he want to wait that long?
When there might be a golden opportunity to make big cash on a Riyadh Season show. The caveat for Sebastian is that a fight with Vergil is a lot more risky than a fight with Errol. But a fight with Errol, that might be way out there in the spring or the summer.
If it even happens.
If they even make it. Because I'm still skeptical. We don't know who's supposed to train Errol. That's not a big money fight. That's not a big money fight. Sebastian Fundora versus Errol Spence Jr. on pay-per-view. What is that going to sell?
Please.
They have to know that fighting at Riyadh Season, you're guaranteed big cash, but there are big risks. As opposed to maybe money,
Hopefully money.
so money, fighting Spence on pay-per-view. If you even do get the chance to fight him. The three fights Oscar mentioned, I like all three of those fights. Crawford versus Ortiz, Boots versus Ortiz, Fundora versus Ortiz. I like all three.
But the fight I think would yield the most pleasing aesthetic, the most fun fight to watch, I think that would be the Fundora fight, because neither Sebastian Fundora or Vergil Ortiz have all that good defense. They're gonna let their hands go. They're gonna throw, and somebody's gonna get hurt.
What, you don't think somebody would get hurt in the Crawford fight? Or the Boots fight?
Yeah, Vergil.
I think they beat him. I saw Vergil's fight with Mighty Mo Hooker. Mighty Mo Hooker was touching him up. Mean Machine was touching him up. Sergey Bohachuk dropped him 2 times.
I think Boots and Crawford, they beat him.
I ain't got nothing against those fights. I like those fights, and if they make them, I'll watch them. But the more winnable fight is the Sebastian Fundora fight for Vergil Ortiz, and the more aesthetically pleasing fight, that is the more fan-friendly fight, the fun fight, that would be the Fundora fight.
You know, the Fundoras might be looking at Vergil's last fight and telling themselves, we can beat this guy.
We can take him. That Ukrainian almost took him. You know, Samson, Sebastian's longtime manager or promoter or whatever he's supposed to be, he already has a working relationship with Oscar when it comes to Gabby Fundora, Sebastian's young sister and newly crowned undisputed champion. So the working relationship is there. It already exists.
They can make it happen.
I wouldn't mind it at all if they did. Vergil Ortiz versus Sebastian Fundora. Sign me up.
Make the fight.